Let's talk about what's happening down in our nation's capital. Once again, Democrats moving very quickly in the House of Representatives, trying to get Donald Trump removed from office with just days left in his presidency. Let's bring in Court TV anchor Ted Rowlands, who has been covering this for us. And Ted, I know the House is at work right now. What is going on?
Yeah, members of the House have gathered on the floor just over the last 15, 20 minutes. They have started together. And what they're going to do tonight over the next couple hours is vote on a resolution to basically implore Vice President Mike Pence to enact the 25th Amendment, which would essentially remove Donald Trump from power. That is not going to happen. So they are doing this tonight. The plan with the majority is to then reconvene tomorrow and at that point take it to the next step and introduce the articles of impeachment, which would be the second. You see now there's a live look at the floor there. The voting process has begun. It is expected that the vote will pass, but again, it's very unlikely. In fact, it's expected the opposite, that Mike Pence will actually invoke the 25th Amendment.
Right, and we're talking about a resolution here. This has nothing to do with impeachment.
Right.
This is completely different. It's a resolution that has zero power.
Right. It's a, hey, Vice President, we think you should do this. And he can say, no, thank you, or take the advice. It's just, it is procedural. And to your point, no power behind it. But it is a very strong message.
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking about what happened and what the reaction is, and folks in the House wanting to do something. So what is the president, though, saying about all this now?
Well, after not saying much, he did say a bit more today. He took a trip down to the border, and before he went, he talked to members of the media, and he said basically, in his mind, he didn't say anything wrong and hasn't done anything wrong.
If you read my speech, and many people have done it, and I've seen it both in the papers and in the media, on television, it's been analyzed, and people thought that what I said was totally appropriate.
The speech President Trump is referring to is now the basis of an impeachment article the House of Representatives is fast-tracking in an effort to remove him from office, because his January 6th speech, some believe, led to this. The article specifically accuses the president of, quote, inciting violence against the government that led to last week's deadly attack.
We fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
The impeachment resolution says the president is a, quote, threat to national security, and lawmakers today debated whether he should be removed from office.
How dare you? How dare you incite a mob to stop the final step in certifying our election, simply because they want to pick and choose whose vote should count and whose votes should not count.
President Trump suggests people said more incendiary things to provoke the Black Lives Matter protests over the summer.
You look at what other people have said, politicians at a high level, about the riots during the summer, the horrible riots in Portland and Seattle and various other places. That was a real problem.
The impeachment articles also accuse the president of tampering with the election outcome, citing his phone call to Georgia's Secretary of State. A state President-elect Biden won by just under 12,000 votes.
I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
A simple majority is needed in the House of Representatives, which would send the impeachment article to the Senate, where a trial would take place, where 2/3 majority vote is needed for a conviction. The president's attorney, Alan Dershowitz, tells Court TV that an impeachment trial for Mr. Trump must happen while he's still in office.
You can't impeach unless you're going to give the president a trial. And you can't have an impeachment process once the president left office. It's only designed to remove a president.
But some legal scholars say the day the president's term is scheduled to end, January 20th, would not be a deadline for a Senate trial.
I think it's a fair reading of both the text and structure of the Constitution. The text of the Constitution doesn't put a time limit on when an impeachment may begin or end.
Law professor Michael Gerhardt testified in the impeachment of both Presidents Clinton and Trump, and he says that there is historic precedent for someone being impeached after leaving office. And he points out that impeachment is not just about removing a president from office.
The Constitution provides for two sanctions through impeachment. One of the sanctions after conviction is removal from office. Oftentimes that's automatic. And then there's a second sanction that the Constitution specifies, and that's called disqualification. It has to do with disqualifying the impeached official from ever serving again in the federal government.
You know, Ted, as you watch that and you have the legal experts come in and talk about it, and we talked about this during about a year ago during the last impeachment. The problem with the impeachment trial is that there really aren't specific rules. Like, we're so used to covering legal trials, and there's legal standards, the burden of proof. And at the end of the day, these trials can be whatever the Senate decides they want to be. And once you get to January 22nd, it will be the Democrats who run the Senate. So they can pretty much do whatever they want.
Absolutely, yeah. There are no rules. We learned that first time around covering it, but it becomes very political, right? So you're absolutely right. After the 20th, it will change in complexity if it begins. The key here is, of course, the Senate still has the majority, and it would be up to Leader McConnell if it would move forward and how it would move forward. This is all just uncharted territory. I mean, you had two experts right there in that last piece who completely disagree, and there's a lot of that going on right now.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that the president talked about was the end of the speech. So I think, and he said it was fine, was perfect, whatever the words were. Let's take a look at the end of the speech.
And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. Our exciting adventures and boldest endeavors have not yet begun. My fellow Americans, for our movement, for our children, and for our beloved country. And I say this, despite all that's happened, the best is yet to come. So we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania Avenue. And we're going to the Capitol. And we're going to try and give, the Democrats are hopeless. They're never voting for anything. Not even one vote. But we're going to try and give our Republicans, the weak ones, because the strong ones don't need any of our help. We're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country. So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I want to thank you all. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you all for being here. This is incredible. Thank you very much.
All right, so that's the end of the speech, talking about walking down Pennsylvania Avenue, walking down to the Capitol. And, you know, again, when it comes to what he's being accused of, the Senate decides whether or not it's a high crime or misdemeanor, right? They decide whether or not that constitutes incitement. They decide whether or not that is a reason, right?
Absolutely. And the question is then what? I mean, he will presumably be out of office after that occurs, unless the timing moves remarkably fast. There's just a lot of questions at this juncture. And with the Republican majority in the Senate, it's unclear where this is going, because there are changes even tonight in Washington in terms of Republican support. You remember last time when the House voted on the articles of impeachment, it was right down party lines. And already tonight we're hearing of multiple Republican members of the House saying they will vote for the impeachment, including Liz Cheney out of Wyoming. This is a different climate. There are people who want to distance themselves within the Republican Party from the President of the United States.
All right, so the criminal investigations. Let's switch topics here a little bit. Let's get now to the rioters and the folks who actually stormed the Capitol. What's the latest on that? Where are we in terms of investigations, charges, everything else going on?
Ongoing, but we're getting a window into the aggressiveness here. The FBI is vowing to go through with a fine-tooth comb, no matter how long it takes, to find the identity of people that were involved in what happened, and that runs the gamut from vandalism, trespassing, entering the Capitol illegally, all the way up to, and we hear today now, sedition is on the table. People that were organizing this, and part of, if there was communication beforehand to organize this. Again, that is a very fluid situation because a lot of these people claim that they just got swept into something and this wasn't a planned thing. However, there is a vow from the FBI and federal authorities to get to the bottom of it, to see who knew what about any set plan before this riot took place. And one thing was chilling. They said, if you were in Washington and you did something wrong, you might be back in your home, but expect a knock on your door.
And any more information about, and we spoke about this last night, about the pipe bombs, because to me this was, a part of the story that has sort of been mentioned, but not great detail about the pipe bombs. I mean, we haven't had a bomb go off in the Capitol since 1983. Before that, 1971. Any indication on whether or not they have found that individual that I know they were looking for yesterday?
Haven't found him. It hasn't been released that they've found him. They have released a person of interest they want to talk to. They also released a cache of weapons that was found with these pipe bomb or these Molotov cocktails. But one thing we did find out today, which is horrifying, sometimes you see the photos of a pipe bomb and you think, I wonder if they're real. They were, according to the FBI, absolutely real, and they were timed. They were set to a timing device. Had those gone off, we'd be talking about a much different incident.
Yeah, and not only the people that work inside the Capitol, all the people that rushed into the Capitol. I mean, hundreds of people. Unbelievable stuff. All right, Ted Rollins, I know you're going to stay on top of it for us. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You bet.